audience. I want to welcome all of you to week 2 of our series called What the Health. I want to use this series, and what I'm really doing in this series, I'm using this series to bring awareness to 3 areas in your life that I'm arguing based on the scriptures that we need to pay attention to, and we need to develop health in these particular areas. And I'm talking to you about mental health, emotional health, and physical health. Last week we began this series talking about mental health. One of the things I said to you is that there's no way in the time it takes to preach a sermon or to go through a series that we can solve all the challenges as relates to health in these 3 particular areas. My goal is not to solve all your problems with 3 sermons. My goal is to invite you on a journey towards health in these particular areas. I did share with you last week that it was some time ago, years, that God began to really deal with me about my own health. And for some time I've been on a journey towards health in these 3 particular areas, and have seen the fruit of going on this journey in my personal life. And so my goal with these 3 messages, I want you to understand, I want to say this again as a disclaimer. If you feel like some of the teaching may leave you hanging, or I don't cover everything as relates to mental, emotional, physical health, I can't possibly cover everything in 3 messages. My goal is not to try to fix your problems in those areas with a single sermon. My goal is to invite you on a journey, that you would be aware of unhealthiness in these 3 areas, and that you would make a personal decision to say, you know what, enough is enough. I'm going to take the first steps on a journey that can last months, that can last years, that can be a lifetime for some people. I want to take the journey towards mental health. We began this series looking at a text that John wrote to a man named Gaius, in which he was praying for Gaius to have health in his physical body and in his soul. I told you last week that the word soul means suke, where we get the word psychology from, and scripturally it is the seat of our mind and our emotions. And so we know from that text in the New Testament that John, the apostle of Jesus, was praying for a man to have a healthy body, to have a healthy mind, and to have a healthy emotions. And so last week we talked about spiritual health, or talked about mental health. We looked at spiritual pathways to mental health, and we looked at natural pathways to mental health. And today I want to talk to you about emotional health. Okay? I want to talk to you about emotional health. Now, this message was very difficult for me to put together. In fact, I've reached out to Elder Milton. I reached out to him, and I had reached out to my prayer leader, and I had asked them to just keep me in prayer, because I was just feeling a real heaviness in my heart when I was preparing this sermon. And I was feeling really heavy when I was preparing the sermon. This one was very difficult for me to prepare because of just things in my heart that just frustrate me with just the local church and the modern culture. I personally, and I don't know who else will agree with me what I'm about to say, but I personally find it very frustrating, and I think that it is a tragedy that the place that Jesus intended for us to have transparency that leads to healing is the very place that has morphed into a place of cover-up. That it makes me angry. It makes me frustrated to the point of tears that there's so many people who are followers of Jesus, whether sitting in this room, watching me right now on YouTube or podcast, listening where you are, who are battling so much things in our emotions, and are so broken in our emotions, and are so hurt in our emotions, and so led astray by emotions. And we go in and out of churches and can't find help because we're so afraid to confess, we're so afraid to talk about it, that there is this cultural pressure to be externally strong, while so many of us, if we be honest, are dying on the inside. And that bothers me. It bothers me that there is a cultural narrative that does not allow believers to hurt, does not allow believers to confess. It does not allow us to be weak. It does not allow leaders to be weak or to confess or to be broken. There is a cultural narrative that says we must be on at all times, we must be strong at all times, and something is wrong with us if we're broken, something is wrong with us if we're hurting, something is wrong with us if we're having issues in our emotions. And so let me keep coming to church while my marriage is being disintegrated and not say anything. Let me keep coming to church while I'm drowning in sin and not say anything. Let me keep coming to church while I'm battling iniquity and not say anything. Let me keep coming to church while I'm contemplating suicide and not say anything, because people expect me to be strong and not have a problem. Where did we get that from? We didn't get that from the scriptures. Not when we have men like Paul that says he boasts in his infirmities and his weaknesses. Not when he writes things like in Romans chapter 7, the things I don't want to do, I do, and what I should be doing, I don't do. And who's going to rescue me from this body of death? Thanks be to God through Jesus Christ. That I feel so upset that we have this veneer on our culture that says it's not okay to not be okay. If any place we should feel comfortable not being okay, it should be in the family of believers. We should say it's okay to not be okay. It should be okay for us to have problems and find help, but only in the church. Behind our suits, y'all know how this go down, and behind your makeup, and behind the hairstyles, and behind the titles, and all of that, man, we'd be preaching and broken, singing and broken, fighting with our husband and wife the whole way to church, and don't let anybody know that we're going through. And then we look up some months from now, somebody's life implodes, and we wonder why, like you was going through this all the time, and no one knew. And the result is a growing number of silent sufferers who's either imprisoned by their feelings or imprisoned by culture. Let me tell you why I take this very seriously, okay? My wife and I, when we was in Bible college, had a very close friend. And this sister, a white sister we really loved, we developed a very close relationship with this sister. Spent time with her, ate with her, spent time in our home with her. She was dating one of my closest friends at that time in college, and she was one of these people like really smiley face on the outside. But then she starts showing signs that something was wrong on the inside, right? We would bump into her and things would come out that would lead us to believe that maybe something was not going on, something was not right inside her heart, right? I noticed how she started looking for her boyfriend to fill the role of what her father was supposed to do. So she tried to make her boyfriend her father. And where her father failed her in what he was supposed to give her in affirmation and love and acceptance and all those things, she tried to find that in her boyfriend, and when he couldn't live up to that, their relationship ended, and then she was just broken. She would start saying things like, I'm tired of life, and I'm frustrated. And she would start expressing all these things, but no one would ever take her seriously. She started talking about like, no, my problems are too heavy for me. And I don't know how long I want to be here. And she was talking, but because she was smiley face, everybody just blew that off. Like nobody took that serious. Watch, even my wife and I didn't take that serious. We just said, you know what? She's always crying wolf. The semester after we graduated from school, my wife and I got a phone call, you remember this? That this sister was found in a car in front of Kroger in the parking lot with a bottle of pills on the floor, some alcohol in the car. She was unresponsive. She had taken her life. She committed suicide. Nobody took her serious. And I never forgot that. Because she was having trauma in her heart, but masking that under the pressure of church culture, that everybody expected her to be well and to just serve and keep doing what you're doing, and there was no space for her to really vent what was going on in her heart. She's gone now because of that. As I thought about her story, I thought about this sermon, it really caused me to revisit my own emotional trauma, being formerly suicidal twice, dealing with my emotional trauma as a leader. I even thought about how, for a lot of people, pastoral ministry is really a crown. It's not really a crown for me, it's more of a cross. I thought about how leading a church magnified my insecurities. It made me more insecure. It made me deal with more emotional trauma. And some of that was brought on by just the way society is built out. I mean, you can have emotional trauma just thumbing through Instagram. I considered really the extensive damage and the brokenness of people I know personally, and even people in this room, that even right now as I'm talking, man, there are people in this room, man, who are really suffering in the dark. I know you are. There are people in this room who are silent sufferers. I know you are. There are people in this room who come to church every week, but on the inside, you are suffering in your heart. You are damaged and you are broken in your heart. There are people in this room right now who I know, not personally, but I could just feel in the spirit as I was preparing for this message, who are emotionally weary and drained. There are people who are dealing with just the heaviness of heart from reoccurring emotional issues. There are people right now who I know are frustrated with chronic heaviness of heart, people whose heart is just always heavy. You don't know why. Just chronic heaviness. There are people right now I know who are just on a roller coaster of emotions. On Monday, you feel joy. On Tuesday, you're down. On Wednesday, you're halfway up. On Thursday, you're down. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Yeah, that's in this. There are people right now who I know are nursing wounds from scars that people have inflicted on you in your past and in your heart. And I know that there are people in this room who are even numb. You don't feel anything at all. You don't feel praise. You don't feel worship. You don't feel God's presence. You don't feel compassion, mercy. You don't feel anything. And really, your numbness is just a coping mechanism because you really don't want to deal with the brokenness that's in your heart. And so you built a wall to keep people out, to keep God out, to keep counsel out, to keep anything out that would touch that part of your heart that you've tried to block because of the pain that you have been through. All of that stuff is in this room and so much more. Listen, the reality is that all of us have to deal with our emotions. All of us have to deal with our emotions. And since we can never really flee our feelings, we must give attention to our emotional health, okay? Since you can never flee your feelings, we have to give attention to our emotional health, because no matter where you go, you know who you take with you? You. And no matter what you do, you know what you take with you? Your feelings and your emotions. You can't turn them off. You can't try to ignore them, right? They're there. And no matter what you do, you and I have to deal with our emotions. We have to deal with how we feel. We have to deal with the trauma and the stuff that's going on in our heart. And since we have to keep dealing with emotions, since it's not going anywhere, I'm encouraging you and inviting you and pleading with you to join me on a journey of emotional health, because a lot of us in this room are not emotionally healthy. A lot of us in this room are probably emotionally toxic. So let me give you a working definition of emotional health so we can start from there and move forward in this message. Emotional health refers to one's emotional well-being. And I want to just teach. I want to take you to school this morning. It refers to emotional well-being and determines one's ability to control their emotions and behavior and build lasting relationships and show resilience in times of trouble. So we know that someone is emotionally healthy to the degree that they have emotional well-being, okay? They know how to control their emotions. They know how to control their behavior. They know how to build lasting relationships, and they can show resilience in times of trouble. Emotional unhealthiness would be any destabilization or any instability that negatively affects our wellness and our behavior. So let me give you some just common signs that we might be dealing with emotional unhealthiness. And they're not going to come up on the screen because I don't want you to stare at them. I just want to mention them. Okay? These are not all the signs, but I do want to say that these are some common signs. If you see yourself in any one of these when I say them, then it's a sign to us that we might be dealing with some emotional unhealthiness somewhere in our soul. One common sign of emotional healthiness is when we have an unrelenting heaviness of heart. That no matter what we do, no matter what happens, we're always down, we're always depressed, we're always moody. It doesn't matter what's going on around us, it doesn't matter what joy is happening. We could have come out of an explosive worship service, but our heart is always heavy all the time. Another common sign that we're dealing with emotional health issues is our inability to control our moods. So if you're a person, you have violent mood swings all the time. If it always swings like a pendulum back and forth, then that might be a sign that you might be dealing with some emotional issues. Another sign that we're dealing with emotional issues, if we battle a lot of envy and jealousy. It's our inability to admire without desire. Right? It's when we see something that someone else has got and we want it so bad but we don't have it. We feel bad about ourselves that we don't have it, and so we push that person out, or we're gonna unfollow them, or we don't want to hear or see what they have to say, because their things make us feel covetous that we want what they have. So if we're always battling with jealousy, we're always battling with envy, that's a sign to us that we might be dealing with some emotional challenges. Another one is if the success of other people makes us feel small about ourselves, that's a sign that we're dealing with some emotional issues. If the success of others sinks me emotionally, if I get mad at other people because they're flourishing and I'm not, that's a sign that I might be dealing with some emotional issues. Another one might be if we're plagued by feelings of rejection and always seeking approval of people. I confessed some of this to you last week, that had plagued me for many years in my life. If I'm always feeling like I need someone to tell me about me, I need someone to affirm me, I need someone to tell me if I'm always looking for the approval of people, that's a sign that something might be broken in my heart. Another one, if I'm plagued by self-loathing or self-pity, that if for some reason I constantly have something negative to say about myself, if I don't like myself, or if I'm constantly dealing with self-pity, if I walk around with an attitude that's always saying, woe is me, and what's wrong with me, and I'm always condemning me, then that's a sign that something is broken in my heart, because pity is really the perversion of compassion. It is the emotion that was designed to go out but not to go in. And so if I'm a person that I always wallow a lot in self-pity, that's a sign that I'm battling with emotional health issues. Another sign is if I harbor bitterness and unforgiveness towards other people. If you have difficulty letting people go, if you make your heart a house and you lock people up in your heart, if you hold grudges for long periods of time, that's a sign to you and a sign to me that we might be dealing with emotional challenges. Another one, this one is big, if we're constantly projecting on other people issues that we have in our own heart. So for example, right, if I had needs that were unmet growing up, I try to project those needs on someone else to fill in my life, and when they can't fulfill those needs, it creates a disappointment, so I'm constantly mad at boyfriend, I'm constantly mad at girlfriend, I'm constantly mad at husband, I'm constantly mad on wife, because I'm projecting on other people needs that were unmet on my life, and some of those needs only God can fulfill. Another one would be if you're impulsive, that if you're rash, that if you fly off the cuff easy, if you're always going left and right with your decision making and you never slow down to think about what you're doing. If I'm really impulsive, that's a sign that something might be broken in my heart. Another one, listen, if you have trouble sleeping and you have trouble getting rest, if you have a difficult time sleeping and getting rest, that's a sign to you that something may be broken in your heart, in your emotions. If they keep you up at night, they wake you up in the morning, you can't sleep, you can't rest, you're tossing and turning, those are signs that something might be going on in your heart. Another one, if you deal with falsehood, that if you have difficulty telling the truth, that is a guaranteed sign that you have emotional health problems. If truth evades your mouth, if you easily bend the truth, if you can lie and sleep, if you can lie and sleep, if you can embellish and sleep, if you can bend truth and sleep, if you can lie on taxes and lie on documents, if you can deal falsely and deceive people, if you can rearrange numbers and sleep and that doesn't bother you, that is a sign that you have emotional health problems. And if you have difficulty maintaining relationships, if you're always lonely, if you're always losing friends, if you're on how many husbands or how many wives, then that's a sign that we have emotional problems. And why is it important for us to pay attention? Listen to me. And I took my time to put together this sermon, and I wrote these notes carefully. Why is it important for us to pay attention to our emotional health? A couple things I do want to tell you, and they will come up on the screen. Number one, because our emotional health affects the quality of our interior lives. This is very important. I'm telling you, I know what it feels like to live and be miserable all the time. And at some point in time, you get tired of living and just being miserable, okay? And if we are emotionally unhealthy, our interior lives are gonna be very dark and very dismal, and we could be living and moving and being, and all the time that we are miserable in our hearts, okay? We will only be as strong as the health of our minds and our emotions. Okay? Another reason why it's important for us to pay attention to our emotional health, because of the temptation to believe that everything we feel is true. Feelings do not authenticate truth. And you have to be careful about believing everything you feel is true. It is very dangerous to believe everything I feel as truth. How many times have we acted on something we felt or said something out of something we felt only to find out that we was wrong in what we did or wrong in what we said? Because we often have a tendency to just believe if I'm feeling it, it must be true. And we have to be careful that we don't get tempted to believe that everything I feel is true. Another reason we have to pay attention to our emotional health, because of this one is huge, because of the danger of making permanent and irreversible decisions based off feelings. There is extreme danger in unbridled passion. That just because I'm feeling something, I just make crazy decisions because of the things that's going on in my heart. Do you know how many of us have probably lost relationships because of unbridled passion? Lost opportunities because of unbridled passion. Closed doors on our face because of unbridled passion. It is very dangerous to be led by our emotions. And I think about how many decisions I have made and you have probably made that we look back on and we regret that we made those decisions because we followed some feeling. All right, nobody wants to be honest, that's okay. You don't have to be honest. I know I'm not the only one that has regrets behind me because I made some decisions based on some feelings. Irreversible decisions. Things that happen in my life that I can't go back and change. Some relationships I probably will never get back. Some opportunities I permanently lost because something I did based on my feelings. Another reason we have to pay attention to our feelings is because of the psychological wear and tear of emotional volatility. You will wear down your mind being up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. That takes a toll on your mind. Joy becomes elusive, and you can never delight in anything because you can be up at 4 in the afternoon and down by 5 o'clock. Another reason we need to pay attention to our emotional health is because of the impact emotional health has on relationships. Man, there are many marriages in trouble because of someone battling emotional health issues. There are many relationships in trouble because of people battling emotional health issues. Okay? There are a lot of us, man, we can't even have good friendships because of our emotional health issues. It's very, very important. Another one is because of the correlation between fulfillment and misery. Man, as I was studying, I realized that most psychologists have come to agree in our days, this is big, that somebody's ability to succeed in life is more contingent upon their EQ than their IQ. Your EQ is your emotional intelligence. Your IQ is your rational intelligence. And studies are showing today that people who have the greatest success in dealing with life are people who are stronger in their EQ than their IQ. Man, you could be highly intelligent and have 15 degrees and live a miserable life. And there's some people haven't left high school and are full of joy and accomplishing stuff in life, not because that they are intelligent or they have a lot of degrees, it's because they know how to manage their emotions. And then this next one is because of the threat of emotional instability to ruin a life. I have a friend right now who's doing life in prison because of a moment of anger in which he emptied a trigger on a 12-year-old in the middle of a street in Queens, New York. Just mad. They got into a fight over a quarter. They got into a fight over 25 cents in front of a store. He pulls out a 9 and empties a clip on a 12-year-old, and he's serving life right now in prison because one moment of unbridled passion can bring a lifetime of pain. And as we consider health, we have to be careful, right? We have to be careful to see these things from the right perspective. There's a teaching out there that makes emotions evil, right? And there's a teaching out there that makes emotions bad. But I want you to know that having emotions is not inherently evil. Listen, God is an emotional being. God has emotions. God has anger. God has wrath. God has love. God has sorrow. God can be grieved. God has emotions, and God created you and I as emotional beings. We see this in Psalms. The writer of Psalms displayed the full range of emotional issues, whether they were up or down. We see the full range of human issues in the Psalm. Imagine life with no emotions, without the ability to love, without the ability to have compassion, without the ability to feel joy, without the ability to have sorrow, without the ability to be angry. Imagine life without any emotions. The Bible doesn't say having emotions is evil. In fact, the scripture says be angry, but don't sin. Being angry is not a sin. What you do with the anger, the scripture says, is the sin. So the Bible doesn't condemn us having emotions. The Bible doesn't even condemn you being mad. I would hope if somebody did something to your kid, you would get angry. I would hope if somebody transgressed your wife or your husband, you would get angry. I hope when you see what's happening with injustice, you would get angry. And so the Bible does not condemn us having emotions. The wrong approach is that we have extremes when it deals with our emotions. And just like there were two extremes with mental issues, there's also two extremes when it comes to emotional health as well. One extreme when it comes to emotional issues is the extreme that says, right? It says, live by your feelings. That is, whatever you feel, do whatever you feel. Whatever comes into your heart, just do that. And that is one extreme that says, listen, whatever I feel, I'm gonna do it. Nobody can't tell me it's wrong. You can't tell me not to do it. And so if it comes into my heart, I'm just gonna run with it. Man, that is dangerous. That is crazy. And just imagine our society if everybody did everything that they felt. If everybody did everything that they felt, you know what we would have in our city? Anarchy, chaos, lewdness. I'm gonna take this from you because I feel like it. I'm gonna do 100 in a school zone because I feel like it. I'm gonna just leave my wife because I feel like it. I'm gonna do whatever I want because I feel like it. If everybody did whatever they felt like, we would have anarchy, chaos, and destruction. The other extreme when it comes to emotions is, listen, is completely ignore your feelings. Feelings are evil, feelings are bad. Watch, ignore them, suppress your passions. So watch, if the wife comes to the husband and says, man, I'm feeling like you're not paying me any attention, man, you're not feeling right. I don't want to talk about that. Or if the husband comes to the wife and says, listen, I'm telling you that I love you and I need you to believe what I'm saying, but she doesn't want to believe that, no, suppress what you're saying. And so there is this thing when we say, listen, suppress your feelings are not valid, nobody wants to hear them, all your feelings are evil, suppress them. And then the other extreme is, listen, do whatever you feel like, right? And the issue is we have to find balance in our extreme because God is an emotional being. He created us with emotions, and the real issue is not having emotions. The real issue is understanding their rightful place in our human experience. So I want to say something to you that's very, very important, and I want you to never forget this. What is the rightful place of emotions in your human experience? Listen, it's going to come up on the screen behind me. Emotions best serve us as indicators, not as dictators. They are gauges, they are not guides. Emotions serve you best as indicators, not dictators. They are gauges and not guides. What is an emotion? It is an indicator. What is an emotion? It is a gauge. It is not a dictator, it is not a guide. Emotion should not be ignored, and emotion should not be controlling. So for example, right, I have a friend who has a very nice car, and a couple weeks ago he was telling me about this feature in his car, right? So in his car, if he's driving on a highway, he has a little light on his rear view mirror, an indicator that blinks if something comes into his blind spot. And even though he can't see what's in his blind spot, the indicator tells him that something is in his blind. Now that car's dope, right? I don't have that feature in my car. But he's driving and something starts flashing on his rearview mirror. The indicator light tells him that something is in his blind spot. Watch, it reveals to him that something is in the lane next to him. The purpose of the indicator is only to reveal that something is in the lane. The purpose of the indicator is not to tell him, switch into that lane. The purpose of the indicator is only to reveal to him that something is in the lane. The purpose of the indicator is not to tell him, switch into the lane. He, after getting the indication light, must make his own decision whether or not he wants to switch into the lane or stay where he is. The indicator is to reveal. The indicator is not to dictate. The indicator is a gauge. The indicator is not to guide him into the next lane. Your emotions are only indicators of things that's happening in your heart. They reveal joy. They reveal sorrow. They reveal anger. They reveal frustration. They're like indicators that tells you, man, something is going on in your heart. The purpose of the emotions is not to tell you what to do with that emotion. Our emotions just tell us this is in your heart. Man, somebody said something and I felt rage. All the rages is an emotion that's telling you something is in your heart. The emotion doesn't tell you kill the person because of the rage. The emotion just is an indicator, like to tell you rage is in your heart. And then if we're wise, watch, we feel, then think. Feel, think. Feel, think. Feel, think. Not feel and just do. Not see the light on the rearview mirror and just merge. If every time he got that indication in his rearview mirror, he just merged, you know what he would get into? A crash. So we have to feel and think. Feel and think. Feel and process what we're feeling. Because my emotions is not a guide. I don't ignore the indicator, but I'm also don't be led by the indicator. I see it going off in my heart, but I'm not just gonna run behind the light. The light is only to tell me something is going on in my heart. It's not to tell me to switch lanes. Does that make sense? Because the aim of emotional health is not the removal of feelings, but rather management, stability, and wholeness. See, because there's teaching out there that's going to make you feel like, oh, my feelings are evil and I should never feel. No, that's not the goal of emotional health. I want to make sure I teach this right. The aim of, if I say I'm healthy, listen, I could be healthy and feel anger. I could be healthy and feel sorrow. I could be healthy and be mad. The aim of emotional health is not to remove your feelings. So if you think I was going to come here and tell you don't feel anything, that's not what this sermon is about. That's poor teaching. The aim of emotional health is not to remove your feelings. The aim of emotional health is to lead us into management, stability, and wholeness. You will never get rid of your feelings, and so the aim is not to remove them. The aim is to learn how to manage them. The goal of emotional health is management. The goal of emotional health is management. The goal of emotional health is management. And as we learn to manage our emotions, we will grow in stability and wholeness. And I'm gonna teach you how to do all three. How do we manage? How do we grow in stability? How do we find wholeness? So I want you, when you leave today, to don't think that I taught you not to feel. The aim of health is not to feel. The aim of health is to manage. So for example, this morning my wife was disappointed with me because she wanted to be here extremely early and I was running late. And so by the time I came out my office at home and she came upstairs, she was dressed, kids ready, everybody waiting, and they're waiting for me. And she said, honey, you know, I wanted to be there early this morning. And I said, I'm so sorry. She said, honey, I really wanted to leave early. And I said, man, I'm really, really sorry. And then she walked out of the room. And I could tell that she was disappointed that we couldn't get here really early this morning. She wanted to be here to check something out in the lobby. And so we got in the car and we're driving, and she's really quiet for like half the drive. And normally when we drive to church, my wife is singing songs and she's praising God and she's bopping in her chair and she's staring at the clouds while she's driving, and she has her own record deal in the car. She's putting it down and she's blowing and like everything is really, really, the sun is shining and she's singing her heart out, and the whole way here she's like this. No music. Now this is really awkward. And I'm sitting there like, man, I gotta preach God's word in a few minutes. So Abby shouts from the back of the car, because like she's so intuitive, she can feel the tension. Abby says, Mommy, can you put on a song? Abby can feel that thing in the car, like it's intense. Mommy, can you put on a song? And I looked over at her just to see if something would break. I'm like, yes, Abby. And so I look over at her and I feel like, man, is something gonna break? And I touched on her shoulder and I said, Lena, did you hear what Abby said? Like, she wants you to put on a song. So she puts on the radio, which is abnormal because she normally would listen to her music from her phone. She puts on the radio, she puts on some station I don't even like. And now we listen to some music and I don't even like it. And I already know I'm still in trouble. I'm still in trouble. And then I said, Lena, I said, you want to put on some of the music from your phone? I said, I'm really sorry we didn't get there earlier. She grabbed my arm, she said, honey, it's okay. And then she puts on some music from her phone. So in that moment, she got hold of her emotions. It wasn't wrong for her to feel disappointed with me, but she could either cuss me out on the way here, cuss out the man of God, right? She could have like cursed me out on the way here, but she had to make a decision. So in that moment, she got control of her emotions. And she said, honey, y'all can clap for Miss Lena, right? And she said, honey, it's gonna be all right. You better go, girl. Because the aim of emotional health is not to not feel. The aim of emotional health is to manage what we feel. So I wanna just give you a path to management. How do you properly manage your feelings? Now, I know that we could look at some man's book, or we could go read somebody's blog. I didn't want to do that. I thought that if we was going to learn how to manage emotions, we should take an example from the best leader that ever lived. Right? So how do we properly manage our emotions? And then I'm going to give you some keys to stability, and I'm going to shut this down. So I don't want to look at somebody's blog or somebody's book. I know people got books out there. I'd rather just look straight into the life of Jesus. So Jesus, the gospel writers records this incident. He's in the Last Supper. He's spending time with his disciples. He sends Judas out the room, so he knows he's about to be betrayed. He knows he's about to face death on the cross. He knows that he's about to be momentarily separated from his Father. And I don't know if you ever really understood this theologically, but probably the most painful thing for Jesus was not only what he suffered physically, but the fact that for the first time he would have to absorb sin. And because of that, the Father would have to turn his back on him for just a moment. And that was extremely painful for him. So he's dealing with all this stuff in his mind. He gets up from the room, and then he walks out of this room to this garden. And I want to read to you what Matthew recorded happened in this garden, just a couple verses. And I want to show you some principles from one incident in Jesus' life to teach us how we properly manage our emotions. So Matthew recorded this. Jesus just pours out his heart. He's dealing with pain in his heart. And then Matthew records this in Matthew 26, 36 to 39. Okay, he says, then Jesus went with his disciples to a place called Gethsemane. And he said to them, sit here a while I go over there and pray. Now watch the next few verses. He took Peter and two sons of Zebedee along with him, and he began to be sorrowful and troubled. Verse 38, then he said to them, my soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Then he says to them, stay here and keep watch with me. Verse 39, going a little further, he fell down with his face to the ground and prayed, my Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me. Yet not as I will, but as you will. Now, as we grow in maturity, we have to learn the proper way to manage our emotions. Health is not the eradication of emotions. Health is the management and stability of our emotions. So if we just take this one text, I didn't want nobody's blog, nobody's book, just the scriptures. If we take this one text, I want to pull out 4 principles from this one text. Very important. Write them down. Take a picture of them. They will teach us something. How do we properly manage the indicators that are going on? Because Jesus had an indicator. What was the indicator? Sorrow. He's feeling sorrow. He's feeling pain. He knows he's betrayed. So that indicator light goes off, sorrow. And what are some principles we can learn to properly manage our emotions when our indicator lights go off? Number 1, we learn from the life of Jesus. It is wise for us to invite others into our emotional struggles.
Come on, sir.
The Bible says he took. So he comes out the room with 11 men. You got to read the scriptures. He comes out the room with 11 men, and he leaves 9 of them in their place. I'm sorry. He leaves 8 of them in place, and watch, from the 11, he takes 3 of them, Peter, James, and John. So he has 11 men over here, and he's going through what? Sorrow. 8 of them are not ready to handle that sorrow. So he chooses who can handle his emotional issues, and he takes with him, or he invites into his sorrow, 3 men, his closest men, Peter, James, and John. Not anybody, his closest men, those he knew could handle his humanity. Dang. These same men saw him on the Mount of Transfiguration in his deity, but now they was about to see his humanity. Who do you have around you that you can be completely vulnerable with? Because when your heart is going off and when your indicators are going off, man, you better have people in your life who you could be vulnerable with, who you can be honest with, who you can say, Eric, pray for me. Milton, pray for me. Kenny, pray for me. I am heavy this week. He took 3 people and invited them in to watch his sorrow. The scripture says he took Peter, the 2 sons of Zebedee, with him and began to be sorrowful. So it's just 4 of them in a corner, and he's sorrowful in front of only 3 men. Because everybody can't handle your humanity. Some people, you show them your humanity, they'll be judging you for the rest of your life. Like, oh, I thought you were strong. I thought you never had no problems. I thought you were, they're not ready to handle the truth. They're not mature enough to handle the truth. Everybody can't see your humanity. So you got to be selective about who sees your humanity. But listen, you are wise to not battle emotional trauma alone. Because when we are alone, we make ourselves a target for the enemy and a target for our thoughts. So Jesus, battling an indicator, oh my God, this is so good. Battling an indicator goes off in his heart, sorrow. He says, whoa, this is so heavy, I feel like dying. I can't handle this by myself. Too heavy. Jesus, this is so heavy, I feel like dying. This is too much to handle by myself. Let me find Milton. Let me find Kenny. Let me find Eric. What indicators are going off in your life that you're trying to handle by yourself that are too heavy for you to handle by yourself before you do something stupid? Before you make a bad decision, before you stray away, go surround yourself with some people who can help you process that indicator. If Jesus needed support, now I know you're strong, I know you're mighty, but if the Son of God needed support during emotional trauma, you and I are no match to deal with all of our indicators by ourselves. It is healthy to build a support system when you know you have emotional trauma. How else do we manage our emotions? This is all Jesus, nobody's blog. Number 2, find freedom to experience and express your emotions. Who told you you have to keep everything bottled up inside? And who told you it's wrong to feel? Where did you get that from? Some of us, we feel so condemned because we're feeling something. It's not wrong to feel. And some people are dying because you don't vent. There's some of us, we never talk about how we feel. And the first step to healing is confession. You need to name it, you need to get it out. You need to say, you know what? I am angry about this. I feel hurt that they did this to me. Call up so I feel bruised about this, right? The scripture says, listen to what the scripture says. Jesus says, quote, parentheses, my soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. And he was the greatest leader of all time and confessing his emotional trauma. See, and let me tell you the problem. The problem is you look to people like me and you want us to never confess we have issues. How do you find hope in that? I know you love your preachers and you love your fill in the blank their names, and you love people that they act like they have it all. How do you find hope in that? How do you find hope where there's no transparency? How? You think these people are superheroes. That's what you think. You think Bishop so-and-so or prophetess so-and-so or whatever someone, you think they're superheroes. And so you idolize them so much because you don't see their humanity. And they never take the time to confess. No, you have to learn to get it out. Your heart can only hold sorrow, but for so much before it starts spilling out of you in behavior. You need to get it out your mouth before it bleeds out of your life. Would you rather it bleed out of your life and cause damage, or would you rather get it out your mouth so you can find healing? Jesus. Oh my God. I hope some of you get liberated today to say it's all right for me to confess. You know what? Some of you need to corral that prayer team when this is over and say, you know what? I've been going through this in my marriage. I've been going through this in my heart. Watch. Pray for me. My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. That came out of the mouth of Jesus. So it's okay to experience heavy emotions, but we must also find the freedom to express them. Spirituality is not void of feelings. Confession is a key to management. For example, I'm gonna put some of my own business in the street, it's okay. So this week in a staff meeting, it was Tuesday, we was in a staff meeting on Tuesday. Okay. We was in a staff meeting on Tuesday, and I gotta give them some context. All right, so our church, we're a portable church, so we don't own a facility, we don't have a building. So we have an office in Morrow, in South Atlanta, right? And from that office, that's our headquarters, right? Thank God we had enough resources come into the church to establish an office. We've had it for 2 years. And from there, listen, we have meetings, we train leaders, we've had prayer. Some of you who've been on teams have been through that office. We have helped people from that office. We've done outreach from that office, collected blankets from that office. We do everything. Without that office, we'd be in trouble. We have no place to operate. So the office is very, very important to our church. We don't have a building yet. I'm believing God that we will have a facility soon. I am believing for that, right? I am believing God that more people would make their love visible and become generous. And I am believing God that we'll have more givers and tithers. And maybe I'm believing God somebody watching this on YouTube might just have compassion and send us a seed for $500,000 that we can, start the initial process on a building. Maybe someone is watching and you've been impacted by this ministry and you are wealthy. Maybe the Lord is moving you to sow that seed of $1 million or 500,000, and you're wondering, are we people of integrity? Just sow the seed and watch what we do with it afterwards in the name of Jesus. Maybe there's some of you watch this every week from cities all around the country. You can partner with us. If you're growing because of these teachings, you're growing because of what God is doing here, maybe you can help us further the gospel. You can help us get out of this school. Maybe you can peel off a percentage of your income and say, man, I watch this teaching every week. I watch this podcast every week. Maybe I can send $20 a month, $50. I can do something to help my family down there in Atlanta. You are part of our online family, and that's completely biblical. We see the Corinthian church, Paul raising money in the Corinthian church to help the poor people in the Jerusalem church. And it's perfectly biblical to be somewhere else. Don't send us your tithe. That belongs to your local church. You can help us with an offering every now and then. So we have this office, and I'm almost done. Is this helping anybody? And there is this, I don't want to call their names. There is this business next to us that's been there for 30 years. And one day they came knock on a door with the manager, the owner of the office, and said, hey, these people are interested in your space. And they walked them through our office, and they're walking around, they're like, oh, nice. Nice. And they say, oh, they want to build a call center in your space. We want you to move out to another space. So you're trying to push us out to give them our space, and they bullied us for months trying to push us up to get to our space, and they kept putting this contract in front of me, and every time I went to sign the contract, something happened. I felt like God was telling me, obviously, don't sign the contract. So just the other day, last week, Erica, we got a letter saying that we're not renewing your lease. It don't matter what y'all do, in 3 months when your lease is over, we're not gonna renew your lease. So you know what they've done? They have effectively, indirectly kicked us out of our office, and we can't even legally fight them. In 3 months, we have to leave our office. And we're looking and can't find a place, we're looking, we can't find a place, and now that's another thing on my plate, because now part of our leader, we have to expend energy looking for, and we're all over and we can't find one yet. So we have 3 months to get out of this place. And when I got the letter, I was angry. I was angry. And so I came into the staff meeting and I told them about the letter. And I said, in 3 months, man, I said, do you know them people, what they did to us? Man, we get kicked out because of them. And I was expressing my rage in the staff meeting. And I was saying, man, you know what? Just for that, when we leave, I'm throwing stuff all over the wall, and I'm taking this down, and I'm taking that with me. I'm taking the blinds, and we have a chalk wall, and I'm gonna paint cream on a chalk wall, and I was angry, and pow was in my mouth, and I was enraged. And Kenny said, Pastor, Pastor, Pastor. And he was like, Pastor, man. I said, Pastor, man, like we can't do that. Like, come on, Pastor, we can't do that, Pastor. Like, you know, Pastor, what if we just do this? And what if we do this? And Pastor, what if you think if we just do this? Because I know how you feel, and I think that it would be okay if we did this. And then the room got quiet, and I looked at Kenny, and Melissa was sitting there, and she was like, breakthrough. And the room was quiet. Kenny's looking at me, I'm looking at him, Melissa's looking at me. And I said, Kenny, I don't care what you say. I'm painting this wall, I'm taking my blinds, I'm taking that. They're gonna feel the wrath for what they did to us. It's true. It's true. Jordan was there, Nadine was there, it's true. Erica, the staff is all with me. I said, I don't care what you said, and blah, blah. And I was just confessing to him what I felt. It's all right for me to be angry, and I was confessing. Now, I didn't do it yet, so I didn't sin yet. I didn't sin yet. I didn't sin yet. It's just what I felt like doing. And then, and then I had to think to myself, you know what, maybe God has something better out there for us. So after I left the office that day, I went home and I began to do the next thing, which we see management, what Jesus did. I drew near to God. When your emotions are out of control, you gotta draw near to God, man. Yeah. The Bible says Jesus said, going a little further, he fell down and he prayed. When your emotions, your indicators are going off, man, you gotta draw near to God. Okay? Tell God how you feel, cry out how you feel. God is big enough to handle your emotions. If David could pray psalms like God break their teeth in one psalm and God search my heart in another psalm, he can handle your emotions. And then this number 4, this last principle to managing your emotions, all not from no one's blog, from the life of Jesus. This next one is what I did with Kenny and with God. Number 4, subject your emotions to what is right in God's sight. Because our indicators sometimes can be crazy, we must have a gauge. We must have a standard outside of our own morality. Your morality cannot be the standard for your indicators. Because if your morality is the standard for your indicators, then you have made yourself a god. And you and I are not good gods. We are bad gods. I am not good at being a God over my emotions. And so when I feel rage, I gotta subject that rage to the authority that is higher than mine. You need to challenge your emotions, subject your emotions, right? You need to weigh your emotions against what is right in God's sight. So this would be an example of, and I know this is a tough one, man, they hurt me, and I say I'm gonna hold them. But after a couple months, I weigh that up against, I subject it to the higher authority. God says, you have to let them go. I said, man, but they don't deserve this. He says, they don't, but you deserve peace. So forgive them and let them go. That's how you take those indicators and you subject them to the authority that is higher than us. You need to challenge your emotions. You have to have a standard above your own morality for your emotions. You cannot be the standard bearer for your emotions. Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to stay in the marriage. I don't want to go to the job. I don't want to go to work this morning. I don't want to serve next Sunday. I don't want to give the offering. I don't want to be faithful. I don't want to say I'm sorry. I don't want to say you was right. I don't want to apologize. I don't want to be nice to I don't want to go see my son. I don't want, but nevertheless. Jesus. Because of what your word says. Dang, when I see your word, I see this indicator and I don't feel like doing this, but your word says. I want to hold them, but your word says. I want to cuss them out, but your word says. I want to give up, but your word says. I want to lose hope, but your word says. I don't feel like being faithful, but your word says. I don't want to be generous, but your word says. I don't want to love, but your word says. Nevertheless, that indicator, not my will, but your will be done, because your morality cannot be the standard for your indicators. Right? That's like this church shooting in Charleston, and that gentleman walked in and killed all those people during a service. And I will never forget how one of the women went on CNN at a press conference and said, I'm not going to hold him. He took the life of my loved one, but I forgive him. Why? Because her indicator was sorrow. She was probably angry. She was probably enraged. And she held that emotion up, that indicator up, to the standard that was above her own. She subjected it. She challenged it. Then she channeled it in the right direction. That's how you manage your emotions. You manage your emotions, right, by inviting others into your emotional struggles, by expressing your pain, by drawing near to God, and keep subjecting your emotions to the standard. As if we grow in maturity, we learn how to manage our emotions. It will help us with our behavior. It will help us from ruining our life. That's how we grow in management of our emotions. And for those of us who realize, you know what, I am not healthy in my emotions, I don't want to leave you hanging, let me just give you these last couple things. This is important for me to give you because I'm intentional that I don't want to leave this series and not give you guides. So these last things I want to give you, and then I'm going to pray for you. You could just take pictures of them or just jot them down really quick, okay? If you know you're struggling with emotional health issues and you want to grow in emotional health, okay? You want to grow in emotional health, these quick things, I just want to give them to you, will help you grow in emotional health. Number one, just develop the discipline of managing your emotions. Just taught you that. Okay? Snap it, take a picture of it, write it down. Okay? You want to develop the discipline of managing your emotions. The more you learn to manage your emotions, the more you'll grow in emotional health. The second thing is nurture your soul with the scriptures and with hope. Keep feeding yourself God's word and keep having optimism, hope about the future. Okay? This next one is very important. You would grow in health if you invest in your marriages, your singleness, and your relationships. If you are married, you know what it is to be heavy because your marriage is toxic. So if both of you, I'm talking to both of you, start investing in your marriage like my wife and I did, it will help you to grow in emotional health. If you're single, don't see marriage as the promised land. You have to see your singleness as beautiful while you are single, and invest in your singleness. You don't keep saying, woe is me, and where is he, and why is she? No, if you are single in this season, see your singleness as beautiful and invest in your singleness. Man, go to a movie. Go get something to eat. Be single and have swagger in your singleness. And don't feel bad if you're not married. Invest in your singleness. Be single with swagger. Where all my single people at? Be single with swagger. Tweet that. Hashtag, right? At Philip A. Mitchell. Be single with swagger. Don't be going around, woe is me, because he's not there or she's not there. Be single with swagger. Invest in your singleness. And if you have a marriage, listen, she's not Kim, and she's not somebody you got to stop dreaming about. Invest. Listen, the Bible says drink out of your own cistern. That's what you got. You got to work with that. She ain't Beyonce, she's not Lena, she's not, that's what you got? You got to work with that. You got to work what you got. I mean, he ain't Philip, he ain't. Don't compare your husband to me. Don't do that. Don't keep bringing me up at home. You invest in your husband. Invest in your wife. Invest in each other. You got to work what you got. Somebody said work what you got. Whether you're single or married, invest in what you got. This will help you to grow in health. Okay? Another one, I'm almost done. I want to help you really big. Grow in self-awareness. You have to know you. And you got to know what's going on inside you. You got to be sensitive to your own indicators. Like, why am I always angry about this? You got to know, why does this always sink me? Why every time I go here, I sink? Why every time I talk to this person, I sink? Maybe I need to stop talking to you. You have to know you. Every time I go to this restaurant, I have memories of somebody that took me there. You got to know what sinks you. You have to know you. You got to be sensitive to those indicators and what God may be saying to you. Be sensitive to you. Grow in personal awareness. I had to say, you know what? If I spend too much time on social media, it sinks me. So I don't spend as much time. That's why I don't go on Facebook. I don't go on stuff populate from other places. I don't like Facebook, so I don't go on there. Because it would bother me. So I don't go on there. You got to know you. I like Twitter and Instagram, right? And I try not to go on there that much. But if social media, there was a point where I was too addicted. So I had to curb my appetite for that. You got to have self-awareness. You got to know your own triggers. This next one is big. Almost done. You need to avoid personal extension beyond personal capacity. You need to avoid personal extension beyond personal capacity. Philip was guilty of this. You are not Jesus. And you cannot be the answer to everyone's problem, and every cry is not yours to fix. And you can't keep saying yes to everything. Every yes you say to one thing is a no you must say to something else. So you can't, every time you hear a cry, you run into it. Or every time somebody wants you to do something, you say yes. You need to learn this powerful word called no. You can't be involved in everything. You can't help everyone. And you can't think that you can run into every problem. That is a complex of emotional unhealthiness. You have to learn to say no. Don't do things beyond your capacity. You know you're beyond your capacity when you're burnt out and stressed. You're doing too much. This next one will help you grow in health. Almost done. Grow in personal contentment and gratefulness. There's nothing wrong with having vision and goals, but you have to learn to be thankful for what you have. If you're always crying down what you have and always tearing down what you have, your heart is never going to be whole. It's not the house you want, but be thankful you got someplace to live. Not the car you want, but be thankful you have something to drive. You can't keep tearing down the things that you have. You have to find contentment. Be thankful. Listen, I'm driven, and everyone knows me, I'm driven. I have goals. Girl, go for yours. Dude, go for yours. But while you're going, be content with what you have. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay. Just a couple more and I'm gonna pray for you. Oh my God, Lord, help us. Lord, thank you for helping me with this. This next one, you need to practice the habit of Sabbath. It took me 5 years of ministry to learn this, pastoring a church. I just learned this in the last year. Being a workaholic is not godly. And if you think being a workaholic is godly, you have not read the scriptures. It is not godly to be a workaholic. Pause. God created for 6 days, and on the 7th day, he rested. Hold up. If God needed rest, and Jesus would often slip away to a quiet place and be alone from everybody. Some of us are unhealthy because we don't rest. You know what a Sabbath is? A Sabbath is, let me chill out for a couple hours. Scripturally, a Sabbath is a 24-hour period in which you do no labor. You don't do anything. Like for the Jews, it's from sundown, it's I think 6 p.m. on Friday to 6 p.m. on Saturday. They don't do anything. You need to build into your schedule a Sabbath. I want to encourage you, find a day where you take 24 hours. You say, maybe from Friday at this time until Saturday at this time, I'm not going to do any work. I'm going to just binge watch Netflix. I'm going to eat ice cream. I'm going to go ride my bike. I'm going to go for whatever. I'm going to put on my onesie. I'm going to be lazy on the couch. I don't have one. I'm going to put on my onesie. I'm going to be lazy on the couch. I'm going to wrestle the kid. When you don't actually do any work, you don't take any emails, no conference calls, right? You're not trying to, you block out everything. If social media calls you to work, you stay off of social. Like, how come this one day I never see you post? I'm on Sabbath. You build in 24 hours of just rest. For me, that's Sunday evening until Monday evening. That's why you won't find me. I don't post. I'm not answering your calls. I'm not taking your text messages. You're not bullying me into a meeting. It's Sunday evening until Monday evening. I don't do any work. Now I don't. I know, now I don't. All right, let me finish this up. Next, delight in activities that foster joy. If it fosters joy, delight in it. It's okay. You can play with the dog. Wrestle with the kids. Go to Starbucks. Go to the movies. Next, refuse to hold people and offenses. You will never be healthy if you got people living in your heart. You need to release them. You will never be healthy if you've got offenses in your heart. You need to release it. 2 more. This next one, oh God. You want to be healthy, at some point in time, you got to embrace you and God's plans for you. You're not going to get another you. You're not going to be somebody else. You can stop pretending to be somebody else. You just got to embrace who you are. Your metron, your circle, God's plan for your life. It is what it is. That was your start. It's not about where you started, it's where you end up. This was your parents. You got to embrace you. And then this last one, you got to build a strong, intimate relationship with Jesus. Your life must flow out of an intimate relationship with Jesus. It is not God's will for you to be dealing with chronic pain in your heart and to be unhealthy. That's not his will for you. You can't read the scriptures and come away with that. God absolutely wants us to be healthy in our hearts. And if you're in this room and your heart is broken, your heart is shattered, you got to find healing. You can find healing, you got to start grieving. You can't keep that stuff inside. You heal by grieving, getting it out, flushing out what's in you out of you. You heal by letting stuff go, letting people go, letting yourself go. You can't keep condemning yourself for stuff that's in the past. There are people in here, your heart is broken because of something over your shoulder. I know what that feels like. At some point in time, you got to see your past as a school and not as a prison. Your past is a school. It's not a prison. You got to trust in God and others to help you. This teaching is very important because you're never going to get away from your emotions. You're going to deal with them every day, all day. And I know personally the pain and the regrets and the damage of being led by my feelings and making bad decisions because of that. So I pray that you would lean into this teaching, and I pray that you would feel God's Spirit saying to you, my son, my daughter, it is my desire for you to be emotionally healthy and strong. It is not God's will for you to just be broken emotionally for the rest of your life. That's not his will. He wants you to be mentally healthy. He wants you to be emotionally healthy. He wants you to have self-control. The Bible says a man without control is like a city without walls. Did this solve all your problems in a sermon? No. But if you take this teaching, you begin to apply these principles, you will put yourself on a journey towards health. I'm on my journey. And I'm pleading with all of you, hundreds of you, to join me on the journey of mental health and emotional health. It will radically transform your life. Your emotions are indicators. They just reveal what's in your heart. Don't ignore them, and don't be led by them. Let them reveal, and then follow the plan of management for your emotions. My prayer is that a year from now, some of you will testify and say, Pastor, you remember that series, What the Health? Man, it changed my life. I'm healthier in my mind today than I've ever been before, and I'm healthier in my heart than I've ever been before. God has truly changed my life in this regard. I want you to be, and I want you to join me in the journey of emotional health. You need that for your heart. The heart is wicked, it deceives. Man, it can make us heavy. I want you to be emotionally healthy in your heart. And I want you to join me on that journey. Amen, my brothers and sisters? Amen.